Boom. We're in it. All right.
Got my tits in there.
All right. Yeah, and mine are in there too. All right, let's start
My
this.
tits are too low. Hold on. There we go.
Let's start this shit. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Jokes by Joe Show. I'm your host, Josiah James. With me is the very lovely co-host, Doug McKizzle. And we have a very special guest joining us from Dallas, Mike Lucas, the comedian and improviser. You were part of Second City, right? Tours in Vegas and Chicago.
Yes, all of it. I'm guilty of. If you have
Jay
to,
Leno,
accuse me of
Conan.
anything,
Yeah.
that's definitely it. I've done a lot of stuff in my. I did about 24 years worth of performing, and then I decided to hang up my microphone for about 10 years because I was co-raising my babies. And now they're teenagers. So for a while I would come back home and they would always be like, I'd say, "Hey, kids, it's me." And they're like, "Remind me?" And I'm like, it's your dad.
Who are you?
And now they're like, "Dad, get out of the house." So
Yeah.
I decided, now that they're teenagers, they want me out. So now I'm back to performing. I teach at the Dallas Comedy Club, and I've been writing books, and I'm now performing as an improviser and as a stand-up comedian once again.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
You can't stop. It's funny.
No.
It's
You always go back to your roots, right? Like even
Yeah.
theater actors that go to TV and film, eventually they end up back in the theater because, I mean, that's what they're just drawn
where
to.
they started.
Yeah, that's where
and
they started.
it reminds them of what got them in the business in the first place. And stand up, the idea of making a room full of drunk strangers laugh repeatedly at will is so powerful and such an aphrodisiac that you forget how much of an addiction it is until you leave it for a while. Now, I got to say, I don't recommend a 10-year break.
I was going to say your material, you got to revitalize
Revitalize all your material. You
Yeah.
got to, and a lot of it doesn't work anymore. Some of it works, but you got to rewrite it. A lot of new stuff because times have changed. It's been a decade since I peeked my head out of the hole. And it's a lot of rust too. You forget. I liken it to being like, you ever like put a treadmill on real fast and then jump off of it and then try to jump back on it.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa! That's kind of what it was like for me to come back into comedy. I forgot how fast everybody works and how quick their minds are, and I had to get back to that speed again.
Yeah, I'm just trying to adjust you so I can see you and you can see me, but now Doug won't be able to see you, but that's okay. Doug, you can look at him on the big screen.
I've been looking at him for the last 2 hours, so I'm good.
It's me though. I'm live. I'm here.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say about I was
amazing.
watching your Conan specials, the spots on your EPK, and like I think those were recorded. I don't know, over 10 years ago, obviously, right? Like.
Oh yeah, that was in 1995
or something like that.
I think.
Yeah.
98. No, Conan was 2002.
Okay.
And the Tonight Show was 1997.
Yeah.
97.
So
Last century.
Your style reminded me a lot of. It felt like I was watching a combination of Jim Carrey, like a hybrid Jim Carrey, Jim Brewer.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And it was really compelling.
My young self was a lot
very animated.
wilder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now that I'm older, I've sort of settled down a little bit, but I still have a little bit of that energy left. But it's a little bit more calm now. It's funny. I get off stage sometimes, and guys would be like, "Wow, you must be exhausted."
Yeah.
I don't think they meant that as a compliment. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Did you ever get into New York City to any of those clubs?
Yeah, I lived in Brooklyn for a year, and I did all the New York City comedy clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I never got past in the New York Comedy Club. I did sets there. I did sets at the Comedy Cellar, but I was only there for a year, so I left before I ever really got into that zone there.
Got it.
It's a real tough market to break into.
Mm-hmm.
You got to live there for at least 3 or 4 years before anyone even pays attention to you.
Oh wow.
It's so dense with comedians.
Well, it is, and I'm a white guy, and no offense to us white guys, but it's you're one of many that's trying it, and they're looking for things that are different, and
Right.
so you're having to face up against, which is why I teach in my books and in my classes that you need to be real clear on your comedy lens, which is sort of your brand. And when you have a clear comedy lens, then now you have something that the audience can relate to, they can remember it, and then they can laugh more harder because they recognize the humor because it's personal.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of truth in comedy.
That's like what you're saying. There's like a distinct difference between, and these guys work together all the time, but there's a distinct difference between Mark Norman and Joe List. I mean, they have two totally different styles, but they're, it's nobody else does it like the way they do it. And they're both hilarious.
That's nice. And when you have someone who's very clear on their lens, it's usually when they take off. Like you saw Nate Bargatze, like it took him a while, and then he sort of figured out who he was, and then whoosh, everybody figured it out with him. And same with Mitch Hedberg. Took Mitch Hedberg quite a while to figure out who he was, and then as soon as he got his character down, he just took off, and everybody loved him.
That's interesting the way you phrase that, is finding your lens. And I think that's where I've stalled as a comedian, is finding that style, that niche that's gonna take me to the next level. And that's, I think, what everyone struggles with. Finding their voice, right?
Well, yeah, if you don't know you're looking for it, especially a lot of people don't know how important that is, and that's one of the things that I teach in my Finding Your Funny Muscle book, is how important it is to, if you don't have a comedy lens, then you're just a comedy quipper. You're a corner quipper. You're like a dad joke guy. You're somebody who's telling jokes that aren't related to anything personal.
Right.
And those people get annoying after a while. You might laugh at a few of their jokes, and then you're finally like, oh my God, this is like bubblegum crap.
I call it, it's low hanging fruit. It's
Right.
easy. Anybody can, that's what I always say. If I write a joke and I think somebody else can write that same joke, I don't do it. I like to
Well,
just,
that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
We're up, like we are, and we're not doing A to B thinking. We're doing A to F thinking.
Yeah.
Right. We're not picking options 1 through 6. We're picking options 7 through 20.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the job of the comedian, is to think further about all of this stuff, so that our choices and our endings are surprising as opposed to predictable.
Yeah, I think Doug was laughing at your comment about it's like Bazooka Joe comics, and I think because he looked at me, because he's like, because I do my comedy is a lot of wordplay, right? And sometimes it can be very too punny, right? And it's just corny as fuck, and I'm sick of it. So I'm trying to like diverge from that. And to your point about getting personal, I started taking more aspects from my life. I have a lot going on, personal stuff going on right now. And so, just an example, like I was helping my daughter with her math homework, and it was a word problem. She's in first grade. She's 7 years old, and I was like, I'm going to turn this into a bit, and it turned out to be like a really funny bit about I was like, so I was helping my daughter with her math program or math homework, and you see, the problem is Gavin has 5 more pencils than Lucy, and Lucy has 7 pencils. So how many pencils does Gavin have? But the real question is, why the fuck does Gavin have 12 pencils? And then I go into all the reasons why he has 12 pencils.
That's great.
Yeah, maybe he's a special needs, or maybe he's a class clown, or maybe he's in charge of the school supplies, and it goes on and on and on.
Maybe he's the pencil pimp.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't think of that one, but that's good.
It's yours. You can have it. The thing that I teach that would help someone out like you, who's used to doing wordplay and then now going into a different realm, is the 36 humor heightening devices. There's all these, the pro comics use all these humor heightening devices, things like, well, exaggeration and sarcasm are basic ones, but like things like contrast, where they do it this way in Cleveland, but they do it that way in LA. I did it this way when I was a kid, and now I do it this way when I'm an adult.
Right.
Extension, which is like, as long as this is true, then why not that? There's cut forward to and cut back to. There's 36 of them. Irony and callbacks, and there's 36 of these. Like, they're tools that you can use in order to heighten and get punchlines. And so for you, one of those 36 tools is wordplay, which is what you're really comfortable using. But there's 35 other tools that you could be comfortable using and begin to expand your repertoire. And I think it would be very helpful to someone like you, who's looking to find different pathways to get to humor.
Yeah. And that's all discussed in your book, Funny Muscle?
Yeah, that's the finding your funny muscle, and
Okay.
then in fine tuning your funny muscle, which is the second book, which is sort of teaches you how to practice using those humor heightening devices. So I would recommend using both of those books.
Yeah, I will.
But I would
purchase
recommend that to
those.
any comic, because
Yeah.
it's honestly, if you're not clear on what your brand is and who you are on stage, that's the first step. That you need to really get to there, because otherwise you're just going to blend into everybody else,
Yeah.
and nobody's going to pay attention to you.
And the crowd, every new comedian comes up, the crowd is going, all right, who's this guy? And
Well, their
you
eyes
gotta
go
tell
over.
them.
And I always liken it. I say that it's like a sitcom. If you watch the first season of a sitcom, you're very unsure of the characters. You don't know who they are yet, so you
Yeah.
don't really laugh as much at the characters. And then seasons 2 and 3, you know who the characters are. Now all of a sudden, you know when Kramer runs through the door, you know what's about to happen without even him opening his mouth yet.
Right.
And so that's what you have to do as a stand-up comedian, is you have to get people to begin to understand who you are within the first minute or two of your act, so that now all of a sudden it's like the second or third season of your sitcom, and they know where your comedy's coming from. But if you're not clear on who you are, you can't deliver material that shows that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's interesting, because now you're saying you got to condense, 2 or 3 seasons into like 1 minute on stage.
Well, and it's easier because it's just you, and you have the ability to write your own jokes, and a couple of good jokes that will do that for you. But it's not easy, because that's what everyone's trying to do. We're all trying to get that first couple of minutes that blows the crowd away, but also introduces who we are as a character. When Mitch Hedberg goes up and does his first joke, and we immediately know who he is, and from that point on, we just want more of that.
Yeah.
And it's because he knew who he was. He figured it out, and then he just became that.
Yeah.
Did you work a lot? I guess who were the comedians that you worked a lot with, that you were constantly, on stage with, and
Oh yeah, I worked with Mitch. Mitch and I did the Chicago Comedy Festival together. We ended up doing a couple of shows together, and then the final show of the week was crazy. It was who was there? Doug Stanhope was there.
Oh wow.
Tom Rhodes was there. What's his name? The guy who plays the piano.
Zach?
Craig Robinson was there. Yeah, it was a whole lot of guys that ended up making it. And Daniel Tosh was there.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So, and it was one show. We all did a set at that showcase.
Holy cow.
And
Wow.
we didn't know who was going to go up next, because Daniel Carlson, the guy who ran the Chicago Comedy Festival, he said, I want you guys to all watch each other. So everyone, I'm not going to tell you who's going up next. So you have to just sit
That's
in the
awesome.
room.
I like that.
The room was packed. It was great. It was hilarious. But yeah, I got to work with a lot of those guys. And with Second City, I got to work with a lot of famous people. I got to work when I was understudying the main stage in Chicago. I got to work with Rachel Dratch and Tina Fey.
Wow.
And Scott Adsit and all those people from 30 Rock, Jack McBrayer. And then when I was in the Vegas main stage for Second City at the Flamingo, I got to work with Kay Cannon and Jason Sudeikis. Those were my roommates.
Wow.
They were a couple at the time, and we lived together as a threesome.
And then you said, I'm going to have some kids. You shut this down.
So I'm going to shut this magic down. And they both said, well, we'll be fine without you. And I think they did okay. They did okay.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really
Have you
cool.
ever
So that's my
done-
name dropping segment of my.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Have you ever done Upright Citizens Brigade?
Yes, I actually did. I did a show with them in Chicago at Zanies. In fact, I'm doing the same show now. Right now, it's called Mike to Mayhem. And it's 3 comedians tell stories, and then 6 improvisers do improvised scenes based on the stories that the stand-up comics tell.
Oh, that's
amazing. And when I first did this show, it was called Chicago Riffs. And my improv troupe for the show was the Upright Citizens Brigade. I had Matt, Ian, and Amy doing the improvising. And they were there for like 3 months doing the show with me. And then they went to New York. That's when they moved to New York for the first time. And that was for the summer. We did it like in February, March, and April. And then they moved to New York that spring. And they were gone. And then the show just collapsed because they were like a big part of what it was.
Yeah. When Amy Poehler, you're saying, right? You worked.
Amy Poehler, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was just in New York City this past weekend, and I went to the Saturday show to see Ass Cat.
ASCAT, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great, isn't it?
Oh my God, phenomenal. I mean, they make it look so easy.
Well, great improv looks like it's scripted. You can't believe that this is something that they haven't worked out beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a series of people yes-anding each other,
Yep.
which means they're agreeing with what the other one's saying, and then they're heightening whatever that was to the next level.
Raising the stakes.
And then,
Yep.
yeah, and there's no mistakes. Yeah, you keep it going, and like, whereas comics, the stand-up comedians, we tend to know but each other. We tend to try to top each other with our
Right.
ideas, and improv doesn't do it that way. They get their laughs in a different kind of way.
I think because I listen to his show all the time in the car, is Conan. He is so good at that. He is so good at I mean, you could just say paperclip and it'll turn into this whole story about paperclips.
What the hell was that? Was that your dog?
That was my dog.
Okay.
That's actually another voice I do when I'm talking.
Vincent wants whoever knows, whoever's walking outside, he wants them to know that they do not live here.
Yeah.
Let them know in a clear and uncertain voice.
He's found his character.
Right?
What kind of dog is that?
He is a Ratcha, which is a rat terrier and a Chihuahua mixed up together.
All right,
So he's a little guy.
so-
He thinks he's a big
I
dude.
was gonna say that sounds like a dog that, a tough guy. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy. He's got the toughest thing about him is his breath. Lord have mercy.
My wife would say the same about me.
Right? Just brush your teeth, my man. And that's what
Yeah.
we try to tell Vincent, but he's got no opposable thumb, so I suppose it's up to us.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed at the show, at the UCB show, and I was explaining this to the girl that was sitting next to me, was that I was surprised at how many times they were asking each other questions, which is like, I guess if you know the rules, you can break them, but it was a lot of putting the onus on the partner, where I guess they teach you you're not really supposed to do that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on questions in improv?
Well, the questions they could be gifts if they're done right, but they also could put the onus on the other performer to come up with what are you doing? Is
the
a
next
horrible
idea.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Why are you doing that? As opposed to saying, I can see you're operating a screw press
Right.
and it's starting to break.
Right.
Do you need help?
Giving them what they're
Now,
doing.
do you need help is a different kind of question.
Right.
I've given you the fact that now you're working a screw press, that we work together, and that something's not going right, and I'm asking you if you want me to step in. So that I've given you a lot of information. So my question, do you want help, isn't quite as damaging as what are you doing?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good distinction there. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So now, were you doing stand up first and then improv, or both, or how
Yeah,
did that
I
go?
started with stand up in Florida, and then I took improv class from Mo Collins. If you know who Mo Collins is, she was on
Was the Daily
in
Show?
Living Color.
Oh, in
No,
Living
not in
Color.
Living Color. What's the other one that
Mad TV.
Mad TV?
Okay.
She was on Mad TV. She's a real popular one on Mad TV, and she taught a class in Orlando, and I took that, and that was my first ever improv class. And I watched her and her partner do a scene where they.
I know what you're
opened up
talking
where-
about. Yeah.
You know Mo? Yeah, you
Yeah.
know who she is, right?
She played the mom on the one with the guy.
Oh, yeah,
guy
Stuart's
in it.
mom.
Yeah.
Stuart, what are
Yeah.
you doing, Stuart?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did a scene that just blew my mind, and I was like, I didn't know you could do any of that stuff on stage, and it introduced me to the whole concept of doing improv, and so from there I started doing both.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm kind of like the reverse. I started 20 years ago doing improv, and I was in one of the original members of the Associated Mess, which was just a local improv troupe here in the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
We didn't go very far, but the
Good
improv,
name.
the improv scene wasn't big then, and then now in the area they have classes and everything, and it's huge now. So
Yeah. Yeah, the UCB going to New York and sort of creating the business model that Second City and Improv Olympic, or IO, did in Chicago was really a conduit to the spread of improv as a product. The big thing in Chicago was at Second City, they would do improv in order to create sketches that they could script and then redeliver those sketches on a nightly basis, and that was their product. And then once a night after their shows, they would do improv, and they would use those to cull those to get their next shows.
Oh wow!
Whereas Improv Olympic and UCB, they're under Del Close's tutelage, and Del Close was his big thing was, hey, improv is, if done well enough, it's its own entertainment. We don't need to script it out. We can just use it as its own entertainment if we can get everyone to be on board with how we present it as a team. And so that's where he invented the Herald.
Yep,
and
the Herald. Everything comes back.
The Herald and the Armando and ASCAT and all those other formats, but they're all sort of grandchildren of the Herald and grandchildren of Del Close. And it's been fantastic because now we can just do improv. I just found out I'm about to do this third season of Dallas Comedy Club's house teams. I'm on the long form team. I just auditioned for them on Saturday, and I just found out I made it.
That's awesome, man.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. So there was a whole bunch of people auditioning for that, and so the interest level is great now for these teams.
Yeah. Isn't there a burgeoning scene in Texas with comedy? Like, isn't like Nate Jackson have a club there, and Joe Rogan has a club?
Austin, Joe Rogan has a club in Austin, and I think they just opened a UCB down there, from what I heard. Maybe I'm wrong, but there in Dallas, there's 9 clubs. There's really 13 if you count the ones that are within an hour and a half away. But in the DFW area, within an hour, like closer than an hour, there's like 9 to 10 clubs that you can work. So, I come from cities where there's 4 at the most comedy clubs. And so to have this many clubs and the possibility of working, it's a really great place for me to relaunch my career.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is awesome.
How far so let me see. I'm trying to think.
From Austin, we're like, I think like 4 hours maybe.
Oh yeah, that's a hike.
What's the name of his club?
3.5 hours.
The Mothership.
The Mothership.
That's where Kill Tony does his show from.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care for that style of comedy, but
I just watched
there's a real
I just watched the live last night but they were in Nashville.
Yeah.
There's a real roasting quality to that.
Yeah, I'm not much of a roaster. I know. Yeah, Doug does roast.
I'm not much of a roaster too. Some people love roasting. I don't. To me, that's like using comedy for bad purposes.
I do, like, I've only had 2 official roasts, and I won all the judges each time. And
oh, nice! You must be a wicked sense of humor.
Well, it all comes. So on stage, I'm a great roaster, but the guys I grew up with, I don't hold a candle to. I mean, these guys are just unbelievable. Like, I always bring up my buddy Curtis Brown. He could have you under your bed sucking your thumb crying. You know what I mean? Like he was so good
at spot the weakness.
He was so good at so quick, and roasting to me is sort of easy because I have all this time to write about it versus Curtis right off the top of his head could just you try to say something about him and he's got like 3 lined up already for you. And so I've always
naturally twisted.
Yeah, and him, Chris Sweeney, just all these guys that I grew up with, that's all we ever did. We would sit out in front of the building and just make fun of each other and, tell stories, but within that, making fun of each other. So it's something that I have
the toughest audience you'll ever have.
Yeah, it definitely, and it also puts a hard shell on you to where you can take anything. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's why the roasting is the 2 comedians that I roasted, they both sent me messages each time saying, is there anything off limits and all that? I'm like, no, everything is open. Like, talk about anything you want, however you want. It's fine with me. And,
except that. Why did you say that?
Exactly. Except how I lay under my bed, sucking my thumb, crying all the time.
Right.
Isn't it funny though how that works? Like the kids that you grew up with that were just hilarious in your crew.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, they're so much funnier than I have, like Jonathan DeRocco, Jeremy Blakesley, Mike Brunn. Everyone has like those 2 or 3 guys that are just have you rolling at lunch.
Absolutely.
And they're not the ones that are doing comedy.
Yeah.
You're like, and you're the one doing comedy. You're like, what?
I say to Chris Sweeney, because I still hang out with Chris Sweeney, whenever I'm in New York, but I still to this day see him and can't stop laughing. I mean, he still puts me on the floor, leaning over. And I say it to him all the time. I'm like, I never feel like I'm 100% funny because I know you're out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Keeps you honest, right?
Yeah. And he's like, I would never have the balls to go up on stage and all that. And I said, I know. And I know there's a huge difference between conversationally funny and on stage funny. It's two different
For sure.
things. But conversationally, he is just absolutely one of the funniest people I've ever known in my life. And I never, I'll write a joke and I'll do it on stage and it'll kill. But I'm like, oh man, Sweeney would have delivered that better.
The worst is when a guy like him gets drunk and starts heckling a real comic because they end up being funnier than the comic.
Yeah, and see, he's nothing like that. Like he's a guy that respects comedy and all that stuff. But I do know guys that you're talking about. It's those. I've read a couple of podcasts that we did a couple episodes ago. I read off this. I made this top 10 list that I said this would never work on stage for an audience, but it definitely for an open mic it'll work. It was just the top 10 list of things that people tell comedians, like their best friends and their family, and the whole.
Like tell me a joke.
When are you going up? You know what I mean? Just come to the show. You come to the show. What's it's all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come to your show so you can make fun of me. No, that's
right.
Like what have I been doing for the last 15 years? Because you haven't come to one show. What material do you think I've been going up there with?
Right.
But I hate when it's just I think that the most annoying thing in the audience is the drunk chicks. It's drunk parties, like the women,
like
the bachelorette parties.
Bachelorette party is the worst when they're drunk and she's getting married.
Make fun of her.
Well, the biggest issue we have in this area, Mike, is a lot of the open mics. They're not at proper comedy clubs. So you're in a bar, you're in a restaurant. So you have patrons there that aren't there to see comedy, and that they're there to be with their friends. And so you're battling against the people that are out with their friends, and you're like, hey, we're trying to do a comedy show here. They're like, fuck you, buddy. We're here to try the special. So
they're watching the game that the club forgot to shut off. In the background.
Yeah.
Right.
I always end up in those situations. I just end up talking right to them. Like I just, I just start talking
That's
right
what I
to
did,
them.
On like 3 weeks ago when on first Friday, I do I host a mic here called, what is it, Country Club Comedy, whatever. I don't even remember the fucking name of my show. And we have wireless mics, and so the bar was just so loud this night. And I just, walked up to the bar and was just talked directly into the person's face, because they weren't answering me.
Hey, you got a kid? I got a kid. I got a 7-year-old. You want to hear a story about my 7-year-old?
That worked for like 2 minutes until I went back up on stage and they got noisy again. But
I would have just generation of people that don't wear their headphones and they're cranking their movies on their devices. It's really interesting. The 10 years I've been away, a lot's changed in that decade. And so when I'm back now, I feel like the crypt keeper waking up from a long nap. Like, what the hell? Why is everybody so picky? Everybody's so angry.
You're the old guy from Shawshank that got out of jail.
Right. I can't take it. What was his name?
I can't think of his name.
Brooks.
Brooks was here.
Brooks was here. He's walking from comedy club to comedy club. He's like, the world went and got itself in one big damn hurry.
Right. I can't even get upset on the open mic at a bar that's showing the soccer game.
That club manager, I thought about sometimes sticking a knife in his throat.
Right.
Make sure you have a callback. The last time you didn't have a callback, and the bottom here fell through.
Right. You better get doing some punchlines, or the punchlines are going to get doing you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
so
funny,
what were the years? What were the years that you were off?
I stopped at 2014, and then I got back into the saddle last August in 2024.
Okay. And so
I missed the whole COVID.
Right. You missed the COVID. You missed.
I was a writer during that time, so I was perfectly situated for that. Awful phase.
And you missed Me Too, and you missed cancel culture, which is kind of like you sort of alluded to it there, where everyone's offended. You got to walk on eggshells. And
I'm getting reintroduced to cancel culture because some of my stuff that I used to do that I try to do now, I sometimes there's silence to it, and I'm just like, oh, did I touch a button? Whoops.
Can I guess one of them? because
Yeah. Oh yeah, which one?
because so
But yeah, you have to choose. There's probably a lot to choose from.
well, no, it's the one that only because I the only joke I've ever gotten somebody to criticize me on it was along the same line. But you do that joke where you're at the golf course, the country club.
What's your handicap?
Yeah, and then your buddy, and then your buddy comes up and it's like, hey man,
What the hell difference does that make?
Yeah.
It's funny
That's such a good
because that's a part of a whole big bit I do.
Mhm.
I talk about, there's a group, I heard this on the National Public Radio, there's a group now called the National Stutterers Association, otherwise known as the NSSSSA.
Well, I like there's one. So the things that make me laugh in bits are those little subtle things that really sometimes go over a lot of people's heads, but
Right.
it just and when you started doing that like that, you said
Right.
handicap like that, and then you
What
just
difference does that make?
and then you just said.
Yeah. You're making the frustration noise.
Yeah. But
Well, I did a whole
it
bit
had it in
about
it.
cartoons being offensive to people with speech impediments, and so I sort of am justifying doing the imitation because I say that they're kept out of certain job types because you can't sound that way and be taken seriously. Like you can't be a cop. And then I have this cop out on the beat. He's like going, "Freeze, queeps! I'm serious. Worry, remove yourself from your vehicle, please. I'm deadly serious." And then he's like, "Okay,
Elmer
Officer Fudd."
Elmer Fudd is a cop. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There's
and then
a-
I do
that's a good
the
premise.
robber is the other guy. I do a guy in the gang, and he can't do the drive-by shooting. He's like, "Take that, motherfucker, drive back around." You know?
Nice.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's sort of a bit that I can still do, but I have to really phrase it in a way that it's not punching down at people with speech impediments, but
Right.
more punching up at the society that allows us to mock certain handicaps
Yeah.
Yeah.
the way we do in cartoons.
Yours was a lot more subtle than mine was. I was talking about how as an adult, you can't really by yourself go to a park and play on the swings. Like you can't, if you can, like if you go down a slide, it's fun, but you can't do that as an adult without a child
Right.
at a park. You can't just walk up to the park
Right.
unless you're retarded.
Right.
Right.
That's the
Then
only-
it's fine.
And then I went through the whole thing. I was like, so you just got to act retarded, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, you get on the seesaw and they give you Capri Suns and open them for you and all that stuff. And then, you leave and you just like, bye. And then you get in your car and be like, 9/11 was an inside job. And just, I let him drool on my thumb.
Hey, that guy was undercover.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I had a whole bit about the R word, the retard thing too,
Yeah.
where it's like, all these actors like Sean Penn and Dustin Hoffman getting Academy Awards for playing someone who's, retarded. And I was like, that's not a big deal. That doesn't impress me. What would be impressive is for a retard to act normal in a movie. That's fucking impressive. And I was
Never
like,
thought of that.
but you know what? Hollywood doesn't recognize this talent because Keanu Reeves hasn't won an Oscar yet.
Nice.
Yeah, so I haven't done that in a long, long time. But
Yeah.
Yeah, probably we're gonna lose everybody on the retard. And
yeah, the R word. And here's a question
The R
for you.
word.
I feel like it's making a comeback though.
It is. It is.
It's like
Yeah.
I watch a lot of comedians. I'm like, oh, they just don't even care
Yeah,
now.
they were throwing around a couple weeks ago, but
I would be careful with that. You might
I
think
know.
it's a comeback, but you
I know.
No.
find out real quickly whether
Listen.
whether it is or not.
Bell bottoms can make a comeback. I'm not wearing them.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Mike, here's a question for you. So like 10 years ago, and when you were doing comedy in 2014, you could get away with doing accents. Okay. So I was doing a show 2 months ago or earlier in the year, and it's a bit where I do an Asian accent, and I got yelled at by the MC. And that never happened to me before in my life as a stand-up, and I couldn't believe it. I was floored by it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was wondering if you've
tough.
run into that sort of thing, because I'm not making fun of. I was playing an Asian character, and I think this club is a little uptight anyway, but so maybe that's the reason.
Right.
But I think it's okay if you're not punching down and you're actually portraying a character and not making fun of it. Like There's an Asian guy in my scene, and I'm
Were
going to
you,
talk
were you
like
doing
him.
your eyes like this?
No, no, I was just talking. I was just,
Well,
you know,
that's okay.
you know, it's a bit about the bit starts out where I'm just like, I don't know who we is, but what I do know is they buy a lot of fucking houses. Okay, the signs are all over the place. You know, every stoplight you see a sign. We buy houses. You know what? I want to put a sign right under it. We give a shit. And then I go into this whole thing about, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we was actually the name of some, you know, Vietnamese dude who's just buying up all the property. We buy a house, and so I do the accent, but I'm not making.
Oh yeah, the stereotype.
Yeah, but I'm
Asian
not.
accent.
Yeah, but I'm not making fun of that.
Yeah, but
culture.
you're a white guy, so it is.
Yeah.
making fun of
Yeah,
it.
so I can't.
Yeah.
Like, so how do you get away with doing accents as a white guy? You just don't do
Hey,
them.
you know, you got everything else. All right?
What else do you want, man?
Seriously, you can't have it all.
We run the country, man. So
Yeah.
I guess I could do it as
a.
a redneck. I don't know.
Well, Bill Burr does a great bit on that. How no matter what a Southern person says, like if Einstein had a Southern accent, nobody would have taken on the theory of
Right.
relativity.
Yeah, the Southern drawl just makes
A
you
equals
sound.
MC square.
yeah.
Sure it does, pal.
You got your relativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, theory of relativity. Yeah, I've seen Louis C.K. do a Asian voice,
Yeah.
and he calls it out though. He calls out the fact that he's doing it, and he's like, "What? That's what she sounded
Yep.
like. It would be a racist
my-
for me to not do it."
Yeah, he said in my racist head, that's how she sounds. And yeah, and he makes you're right. He makes fun of him. I know the bit you're talking about where he thought it was a thought it was
So
he was
it's
outside
tough,
his
man.
hotel.
It's like the thing about comedy is you're always taking the piss out of somebody, and so you have to figure out who is it that you want to take the piss out of, and if it's somebody who's already down and struggling, that's where it becomes that low hanging fruit you were talking about.
Right.
Yep.
And then when you punch sideways or punch up, there's more glory to the humor, I think.
Yeah. I found this, it just happened by mistake. You know how that happens sometimes? Like something on stage happens by mistake and it ends up really working. I just one day at an open mic I was like trying to figure out a segue into my jokes, throughout my jokes. And usually my material is just, it's hard for anybody else to do because it's so personal to me that's why it's unique. But I don't do too bad in life. And I was talking, and that's all I said is I said, I'm not like the rest of these comedians here. Like they got roommates and their name on the milk and all that stuff. I'm doing pretty good, you know?
Name on the milk.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm doing pretty good, you know? And then I talk about my kids and then my wife. But each time I segue into, so, you know, I let my son play outside. We have a huge backyard with a huge front yard and a side yard. You know, I'm doing pretty good, as I mentioned. And I keep doing that, and it's somehow...
You build on it.
It just works I've done like at least 10 shows now where I just kind of float that throughout it. So it's like I don't even know if it's a callback joke. It's just like a floating little pepper that I put on the on each
it's
joke.
like a theme.
Yeah.
Running.
Like, you know.
Yeah, well, those are fun. Those are fun to have.
Yeah, and I constantly say I'm not trying to brag, you know, I'm not trying to brag, and then I go into a joke about my wife, and I'm like, so my wife is white. Okay, that time I was bragging that time, and then you know I do this whole bit on that, but yeah, like I said, I never planned that to happen. It just happened, and it just works. You know, now I do it on purpose, but
Right. So
it
you're
just
kind of
works
like
so
doing
well.
that's like the Second City formula where what you're doing on stage by accident turns into a bit.
I love that stuff. I love that. Where it's just
It's like when magic happens.
yeah, like when you're recording your set and then you go back and watch it and you're like, I don't even remember saying that, and that killed.
Yeah. Like that one you did where you're like, back when I loved my wife.
Yeah, I do this joke where I talk about when I met my wife, I was working nights and we would text each other every night before she went to bed. She would, text me good night when we used to love each other. And I just said that part about when we used to love each other at an open mic, and that got the biggest laugh.
Right.
And now
It's relatable.
And I'd never said that before. It just came out, and
Very relatable.
yeah, and then I started doing it every time I do the joke, and it works every single time. I have to wait for the laughter. It's funny.
Yeah, so talking about reinventing yourself or trying to come up with your voice, I'm trying to get a catchphrase going. So I've been working on something that I'm gonna, be identified as.
You try to get her done?
No, not get her done. Not. But that's a great example. Larry the Cable Guy has
Right,
his,
sure.
and so I'm trying to get mine where I say all these things that are like very factually accurate, and then at the end I say, not that I'm keeping track, okay? And I go through a whole list of them. So an example would be, next week I'm turning 46, which means I've been alive for 16,790 days. Not that I'm keeping track. Woke up last night 4 times to take a piss. Not that I'm keeping track. And then I just keep going on and on until at the end my life just unravels. But I'm still spouting off, facts, but I'm not keeping track. And so,
But like you're crying.
yeah,
I'm not keeping track.
Yeah. So in the end,
Not that I'm keeping track.
right,
Why
exactly.
would I keep track?
Yeah. So at the end, it's exactly like that. I have a breakdown on stage, and so that's the bit that I'm working on.
This is the 15th time I've broken down doing that bit. Not that I'm keeping track.
I never get through this. Yeah, exactly. You catch on quick. Exactly.
So let me see. So you I guess you were born and raised in Cleveland?
Actually, I was born in Indiana, and then I moved to Virginia, and then I moved to Cleveland by the time I was 7 years old.
Was it
So
Army,
I kind of grew up
military
in
family?
Cleveland, but I wasn't born there.
Military family, moving around?
No, that was just a dad who's an engineer who was
Okay.
doing different work,
Okay.
and got a job he liked in Cleveland, and so we ended up just living on in that area, which I was bummed out about at first, and now I feel a little bit better about it. Cleveland sort of improved itself.
Yeah.
Cleveland.
And
Knox.
so you go from Cleveland, and then I guess you were working at AT&T for how long?
Yeah, I went down there. I went to the University of Dayton for 4 years and graduated from there cum laude with a management information system and a minor in computer programming.
Nice.
Oh wow.
And worked at AT&T right after that for 2 years, making your lives better by quitting.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right? Yeah, it was definitely a job that wasn't for me. What my boss was like, "You're doing a good job, but why are you here? You seem like you want to be somewhere else." And he was right.
Yeah.
When I worked, I auditioned for Disney World down in Orlando, and I got at MGM Studios. I got in the first cast that was hired to do MGM Studios, and so I was one of the ones that did Superstar Television, where we did a 3-camera shoot and we put the guests into the different TV shows. And
Oh, wow.
I did the Star a Day conversation, where we interviewed like C celebrities who would do their handprint ceremonies once a day.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was how I sort of I got started in stand up, was at nighttime. While I was doing that during the day, at night I was doing open mics.
Nice.
And I did a workshop there in town. And yeah, and then from there I moved to just the road. I was living in the road, and I had a answering machine in my parents' house, and I just shut the volume off and called in for my messages. And then I moved to Chicago, and then that's when things started taking off for me. I got the A&E Straight Dope was a show that I did out of
Nice.
Chicago.
How old were
And
you
then-
at this point?
At that point, I was probably 30, 29, 30,
Nice.
something like that. And then that's when I got my Tonight shows, and then I got Conan stuff, and then I moved to New York for a year, but then I moved out to LA, and that's when more stuff happened, and that's when I got the Second City stuff, and then I got the CBS Radio. My wife and I did, my eventual wife and I ended up doing a show for CBS Radio called Cracking Up with Gretchen and the Lukes, which was a weekly show we did there, and that was going on real strong until, remember when the housing crash happened in 2008?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's when FM Talk crashed also, and that's when everyone like Tom Likas and Adam Carolla and all the Heidi Frosty and Frank, they all lost their FM Talk jobs, and we were on that same station,
Oh,
so
wow.
we lost our job
Because
too.
it all went to Sirius, right? Sirius took
yeah,
over.
yeah, it all went
Terrestrial
into
radio
the,
started falling off. Something I just want to go back to the Jay Leno and Conan. So I know on Conan you did that, and it's a killer joke, the bed joke, where the bed is seducing you to come
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
right.
So I wondered, were you able to do that? I guess because that joke is pretty racy, but I know Conan at the time was a lot more progressive in what they allowed and stuff like that versus the
Right.
Tonight Show. I guess Was there ever a joke when you went on to one of these shows that they said you can't do that one?
Well, the one when I did the Tonight Show, I did a joke about golfing, and the joke is I say, well, if you could hear me golf but you couldn't see me, this is what you would hear, and then I go, shh.
Yeah.
And then I go, shit, fuck it. And so on the Tonight Show, I just had to go, yeah, bucket. And I said, bucket. And so and everyone thought I said the F word on Tonight Show because I said bucket. And it sounded like, because I said it just light enough where you couldn't tell. But you could, if you looked at my lips, you could see that bucket.
Yeah.
So, but that was the closest I came. The bed seduction one, it was all innuendo.
Yeah.
You know, I want you in me, you know, my bed's a whore.
It's so good. Yeah, that's so good.
Really prostitutic.
Yeah.
You know, but but I always push the edge, you know, I always kind of go to the edge, and they were fine with it as long as I didn't cross over.
Yeah.
You had to submit your jokes before, obviously.
Oh yeah. They tell you what they want you to do, and then you just do that. Everybody sort of has to fit in with the booker's vision of what they want their show to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the second time I did the Tonight Show, I had to submit like 3 different tapes before I got it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because they were like, no, that's not quite it. And then they were like, yeah, I think we got it.
So you're trying now to get on like Fallon or Kimmel, working your way back.
I haven't tried to get on anything yet. I'm just trying to bust the rust, man. I'm trying to get back in my game. What's it been? August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. It's been 8 months.
So shaking off the cobwebs. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just now in the last 2 months have been starting to feel like I've got my skills back, and I'm starting to get booked here in town for more stuff.
That's great.
You got like a good hour?
I would say right now I've got probably 40 minutes I could do.
Nice.
Okay.
So I still got to build another 20 minutes on top of that.
All right. I'm noticing this poster behind you, the Hiss of Death, Spin Kick. Is that...
Spin Kick. That's the book I just wrote.
Okay. Is that comedy or is it martial arts?
It's a martial arts vigilante crime thriller. Believe it or not.
Oh, so fiction.
But it's fiction, yeah.
Okay.
It's like a airport book. You know, the book you read when you get on a flight.
Yeah. Okay. When you were saying book, I thought maybe it was like a comedy class book or something, but this is like a...
No, I've written 3 of those.
Okay.
My books are. Let's see if I have any copies of them sitting around here.
And I'll put the link.
But that's finding your funny muscle.
Yep.
Fine tuning your funny muscle and flexing your funny muscle are my comedy books.
Yeah. I'll put
And then the
links
one that I wanted you guys to know about, this one here, The Business of Comedy.
Okay.
This one is 21 things that every comedian should know about the business of stand-up comedy, and it's I give it away for free if you give me your email address and get on my list. But it's $10.99 at Amazon. But it's really great. It tells you 21 things that every comedian should know. And it's stuff like how to get booked, how to develop a following, how to discover your own brand.
Nice.
And just the 5 tools that every comedian should be mastered, at, and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I definitely need to read that because those are all.
Yeah,
things.
it's good. It's what you need to know in order to begin to make a living at this crazy thing we do, because it's easy to work for free, like we do a lot of open mics and do a lot of guest spots, but getting a gig is where it gets challenging, and then getting rebooked is the hard part. And if you don't have your self set up with your electronic press kit and your followings and your social media presence, and then you don't stand to get rebooked, and that's the hard part.
Yeah. And I know you said you have a hard stop at 7.
Yeah.
One thing we like to do on the show is at the end, we like to just discuss as anything we're workshopping, like a joke. Do you have anything that you're kind of like...
Oh, let's see.
You want to like throw around?
Let's see.
Not to put you on the spot.
That's okay. No, I write a joke every day. So
that's what I try to do too. Yeah.
So what did I write today? Since when did a red traffic light mean it's time to check your text? I'm sitting behind this guy at a red light, and when it turns green, he's still sitting there chilling like he's parked at a lake house, and I'm behind him like I'm driving an ambulance full of bees.
I like it.
Do you ever
very
you ever watch somebody not notice a green light and realize they'd also missed a wedding proposal or an incoming asteroid? Red lights used to be a break. Now they're just a hostage situation for people with boundaries.
That's good. Yeah, so you're picking up on the how people act today now. That's everybody, right? They're always.
I said, I'm sure his car is pissed. It's like, I'm capable of 160 horsepower, and this clown's using me to text LOL same.
I like it.
That's good.
So and I just like, and I don't know if I'll ever try that on stage, but it's just a way to get used to, going through the motions of writing a joke every day, and having something that you can put on stage.
Keeps your mind in that mode.
Yeah,
keeps that muscle.
That's right. The funny muscle, exactly.
Yeah, well, it is, and like any muscle, if you don't keep working it, it gets flabby.
It's so true.
Yep.
So true.
So I've got to get my funny muscle hard again.
Yeah. How about you, Doug? Do you have anything that you're just?
I wrote something the other day because it actually happened. I thought that Japanese people could understand Chinese people the way I understand Australian people. That's how dumb I am. That I was like, oh, I bet a Korean guy could understand a Japanese guy. Like, it's just an accent, I imagine.
That's
you know
good.
what I mean?
It's good as long as you don't do the accent on stage. You'll be fine. The Australian,
don't do that accent on stage.
I don't think it needs the. I don't think it needs any of that.
The Australian one you can do.
I just think it. I don't think it needs any of that.
Retard.
I just it's more I think the main joke is how stupid I am.
Yeah.
And that's just an example of it. I don't think it needs the accent or anything.
I love it. Yeah, the one that I've been throwing around.
It makes you think the accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Let them be racist.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one I've been throwing around is, how come shampoo bottles keep getting larger and larger and preformed plastic molded shower shelves stay the same size? Yeah, we think 2 inches is enough, especially on a slippery surface, to accommodate this massive jug of, what am I in a travel size shower here? What's going on?
I don't think either of you should be telling shampoo jokes.
Fuck you.
What is that called? Shampoo? I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my gosh, he's the roaster. He just proved it right there.
Yeah.
Right? You can't get away. You can't get away with a bald head on this show.
No, we do look a lot alike, and I didn't realize you're in IT as well. I'm a software engineer, but I'm thinking about also, trying to make money at this comedy thing. So, we'll see how it goes.
Well, figure out a way to do your job remotely, and then you got.
Yeah, I was remote for 9 years.
Well, there you go.
That's why I've stayed at McDonald's.
Can I suggest this book for you?
Absolutely,
just so you know?
absolutely. Yeah. I will get on.
No, I'm definitely checking that out.
I'll get on your email list, and then we'll put all your links to all your books in our show notes for the website, the episode that accompanies the show. And Mike, I just want to thank you for thinking of us and coming on the show to discuss your new endeavors into the comedy. A decade later, it's exciting.
Appreciate it, man, and keep in touch, and we'll touch base again.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have you on the show again, and if you're ever in Philadelphia area, please reach out.
Yeah, Philly or New York, I'll come.
Yeah, or New York.
I've done Helium in Philadelphia.
Okay.
Before.
I've done. That's a great club.
Yeah, and if we ever end up in Dallas, I'd love to get a spot at.
Let me know. We'll hook it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
It was really nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, you too, guys.
Thank
you so much.
Yeah,
appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
and text me when you got a link, and then I'll share it with my social stuff.
Yeah, cool. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get it out before I head to my movie set in May. So give me like a week.
Look at this guy.
Perfect.
Should be good.
Head to my movie set.
All right. Well, I don't know if you can hear the closing music, but that's what we play at the end of the show. And pleasure having you, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
See ya.
See ya.
What an awesome guy.
Oh, he can hear it because he's whistling.
Oh, there he is. That was great. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, awesome.
Very funny, too. Like I said, I spent
funny.
the last 2 hours watching this stuff and just cracking up.